Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 5th City Council meeting. It's a special meeting tonight. City Clerk, would you note that all council members are present? First thing on the agenda is the public communications. This is the time and the place for folks out there to address the City Council on items that do not appear on the agenda. Due to the Brown Act, items not agendized no action can be taken. Anybody wish to speak to the council on any item not on the agenda?
Yes, sir. My name is Al McCombs. Tonight I would like to make a note of something of historical interest that applies a little bit to what you're going to discuss tonight, but doesn't address it directly.
Sneaky, huh?
It was back in 1975, I believe, that we had a city attorney named Bill McVitie, who retired from his job here and went on to the state assembly. And he had two young guys in his law office he'd taken in, two Chino boys. And the council decided to pick one of them as the city attorney. This was 40 years ago. And he's here tonight, Jimmy Gutierrez. 40 years ago, he was about 27 years old when he took the job. And there was people there who thought he was too young for the job, but I can appreciate that now because that's what they thought about me when I took my job at the age of 27.
There you go.
When I came to the Champion.
40 years.
But I just thought, Jimmy grew up here, graduated from Chino High, went to Pomona College, UCLA Law School, and then he became city attorney at that time. And I think that says something for Chino.
We don't care who our city attorney is?
No,
Oh, that wasn't it? Okay.
we've gotten used to him.
Yeah, that's for sure.
No, but I think it's significant that 40 years.
Didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Jimmy.
I can say there have been many good times, much more than there have been bad times, and a lot of challenges that we've solved together with many people sitting where you're sitting today. I would say that sadly that all the council members that appointed me in 1975 have since passed away. We remember them all fondly, but unfortunately they've all passed away. Most of the others are still around. A few have passed away, such as Pete Garcia, but most of them are still around, so it's God bless them all.
Very good. Okay, anybody else in the public communications? Seeing none, I'll close public communications. Item 1, selection of voting district maps. The presentation this evening is by Mr. Doug Johnson from National Demographics Corporation. Mr. Johnson.
So, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I have a presentation. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I think a lot of people were here before. I'll just highlight the couple of things that have changed. First of all, in terms of time frame, we are at our second public hearing, and the goal tonight is to receive direction from the council on a preferred map that would then be incorporated into a formal ordinance that would come back at your third public hearing on May 17th. Oh, fourth public hearing. Oh yeah, the fourth meeting and third formally noticed hearing. And then on June 7th, the formal adoption is the second reading of the ordinance, and that's fairly pro forma step. So tonight is really the key meeting for selecting a plan, although it's not a irreversible decision. As was discussed in detail at the last hearing, in terms of drawing these maps, we're looking at federal requirements for essentially equal population in each district, compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act, and avoiding racial gerrymandering. And then looking for the plan that best balances what we call the traditional criteria, which are goals of keeping districts compact, following major roads, and respecting communities of interest. There are a couple new maps, but 4.1 is not one of them. 4.1 is the first one that we showed last time. when I look at this, there are different factors all over the city in each of the maps, but the big difference for 4-1 versus the others is that every district is bordered on Central. So all 4 council districts are heavily related to Central Avenue. And then this one has 2 districts that come down to the south, down to College Park and below. In comparison, the others all only have 1. 4-1B, the maps with Bs are the ones that are new for this meeting, and they're really responses to the public comment at the last meeting. So the big change in 4-1B is on the border of districts 1 and 4, the orange and the green. District 1 comes down a little bit farther. It comes down all the way to Schaefer to unite the Villa Park neighborhood, or Via Park neighborhood. And then the border between 3 and 2 is also changed so that 2 comes down to Edison. And then the population is balanced out by 3 going a little bit farther north. Instead of stopping at Jefferson, it goes all the way north to Walnut. And it also moves a little farther east, so that instead of stopping at Benson above Riverside, it goes over to Magnolia. But not huge changes. If you look just briefly, you can see how in the 2 maps, 4-1, you can see districts 1 and 2 are farther north. And then when we go to 4-1B, they shift down. And then at the top of District 3, you can see the change as it moves a little bit north and more east. So again, that was in response to the 2 members of the public that asked for changes to 4-1. 4-2 is different. Obviously, its kind of defining characteristic is it has a central District 3, and then 1, 2, and 4 can wrap around it. Again, we don't have the Villa Park issue in this map, but 4-2-B does have changes over on the east side, where it brings District 2 down to Edison as well, and then balancing changes to District 3. So you can see those differences. 6-1, we also have a couple of maps that would take the council to a total of 7 members, 6 council districts with an at-large mayor. 6-1, we talked about its kind of horizontal districts. You see where District 6 in the blue, on the east side above Schaefer, District 6 comes up and picks up that kind of narrow strip of small geography but a lot of population. And again, the feedback at the last meeting was to try to unify those neighborhoods. So 6-1B, you can see how Districts 5 and 3 move east so that they put together those neighborhoods that are east of San Antonio Avenue. District 6 still needs to get the population. So it does come up above Schaefer, but now it does it on the west side of District 3 instead of on the east side. So that's the main change there. The other, if you look at the north, as we rotate the populations around, District 2 in 6-1 has kind of 2 feet that come down on both sides. 6-1B is a much more compact versions of Districts 1 and 2, and 2 loses its western foot coming down. And then draft 6-2, very different 6-district configuration. It actually has Via Park and the East Chino neighborhoods together, so there's no 6-2B because the 2 neighborhoods that the gentleman addressed last meeting are already together in 6-2. So happy to come back and go into any details or answer any questions about any of that. Really, the goal tonight is, usual public hearing to find out what people like and dislike about each map, and in particular which maps they would encourage the council to adopt. And then our goal is to get direction from the council tonight on which map to incorporate into the formal ordinance. And as in your staff report, looking at the maps and at the public comment from the last hearing, we are recommending 4-1 or 4-1B, and in particular 4-1B, because it responds to the public input and that central connection for all the districts to Central Avenue, really.
4-1B or 4-2B?
4-1B.
Is that the one with the 2 changes?
Yeah, that has the 2 changes. And it has that defining characteristic of all 4 council districts would remain very tightly
looking at the wrong
oriented
one.
to Central.
Okay.
So, but obviously the council's free to choose whichever map it wants. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Prior to council comments or questions, I'll open the public hearing. I have two written requests to speak. First is Mr. Gary George. Gary?
Gary George, 6571 Manzanita Street in Chino. Thank you, Mayor. And congratulations, Jimmy. I didn't realize it'd been 40 years either. Wow. At the April 20th meeting, I made the suggestion and talked with Mr. Johnson regarding the extending Area 2 down to Edison Avenue to maintain the neighborhood around the Rhodes Elementary. Having studied the new plans and looking at and talking with the city and looking at density, looking at balance, and looking, and more importantly, at the fact that if that change wasn't made, there would be two representatives, two council members, instead of one representing that neighborhood. I would be glad to rescind my earlier response, and whichever way you go, I think we'll be okay.
Well, weren't you in favor of the Plan 4B?
I was 401B, but I'm just saying that if that changes the balance, if that and the density, then I'm okay with not making that change. The Villa Park change, I think, is totally necessary, but I'm not. I'm okay with whichever way you go on the 401 or 401B.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Okay.
Next request to speak is Mr. Mark Hargrove. Mark, where you been? I haven't seen you in a while.
Been around.
Still coaching?
Well, I was gone for 2 weeks and you changed the whole city on me, so I came back and, yeah.
You know how sneaky Sacramento is, you know?
Well, I thought you were still blaming the attorneys on this, are you?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to make some comments, real quick, Mayor and council and staff. I didn't get an opportunity to come last meeting. It was pretty quick there 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't in town. But the only thing that jumps out at me, and it's more of a personal matter, is that it looks like the map 4-1, 4-1B are fine. I was just more concerned with the East Pacific plan being up to Mountain. It seemed like they made notes in here that I saw in the staff report that East Chino, having community of interest, was located south of Riverside Drive, east of Cypress, west of Euclid, and north of Edison. I've always known it to be east of Mountain, not Cypress. So I have a lot of interest in that area, primarily the east side of Chino like that. Not that I don't know people in the other parts on the west side of Mountain Avenue, certainly, but I think there's more commonality if they went all the way over to Mountain. And I understand you're far along in the process and you're looking to vote on a map today, but I would like you to consider that. As far south as that goes, it seems like both maps go all the way down quite significantly past, or some of the other maps didn't go beyond Schaefer Avenue, and these seem to go down further. I know that changed the whole dynamics of demographics and all that stuff, but talking to my neighbors and at least in my development, which wasn't developed by about 5 or 6 years ago, I think we have a greater interest, like I said, on the east side of Mountain, not Cypress Avenue. I don't know if they picked the channel for that or however they drew that up. I just wanted to get those comments in and say that I appreciate if you'd consider that going over to Mountain, and that's all.
Well, what's ironic about drawing these maps up by population is that we have to use the 2010 consensus. And you know how the preserve and College Park have exploded since then. So really, when 2020 rolls around, there'll be a significant shift in all these borders because of the population there in the preserve and the College Park. So it's going to be pretty dynamic when that happens.
Yeah, it looks like you'll be making more changes as
Oh, yeah.
those come along, just
Have
for
to,
the
yeah.
population. I know we're using those numbers for the preserve from, I don't think there was hardly anybody out there
No, there
in
wasn't. 2010 or
at
College
all.
Park. Yeah.
But I do recognize that probably one of you is gonna get stuck with the prison down there, and so good luck with that. Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark. That's all the written requests I have. Anybody else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? Oh, Paul, come on up.
not correct myself. So. Dr. Paul A. Rodriguez, 5031 Independence Street. I just want to let people know that my doctorate is not in medicine, so don't ask me for a prescription. And it's not in psychology, so I'm not going to analyze you. It's more in leadership and in management of schools. And I think if you've been a high school principal with a population of over 2,300 kids and underperforming, you'll understand that sometimes if you've ever been in a lunch during a lunchtime with 1,600 teenagers, 9th through 12th grade, breaking up fights and monitoring, that shows a lot of leadership. Maybe some counseling too, and discipline. But anyway, I want to start off with really congratulating the City Council for everything they're doing at this time with the hard knocks and the situation of having to make decisions forcibly, as we have been told. You know, and I agree with you. Having these Nazi judges and criminal mafia attorneys who really don't know anything trying to tell cities what to do is not very democratic. So I applaud you to stand up for the reasons that we have established in the past, that being sound mission, vision, and values that the city has stand for over 100 years since existence. That's the strongest point. As I mentioned yesterday, envision the city as a chain of pearls, where every individual, from the custodial, classified, to the supporting staff, to the mayor, to everyone. Everyone is a part, but yet everyone is part of the whole. In last Sunday's daily bulletin, the mayor of Cucamonga is facing the same situation. On page 21, I recall it was, he mentions also the difficulty of having to stand up to Nazi judges and mafia criminal attorneys. They should all go to jail. But he says this: despite the fact that we may have this decision or we're under a rock, the unity of the city will still move forward because of those traditions. And this is where I praise the council and their leadership. Number one, not one city that has opposed this ordinance has ever won. So the odds of us of winning, if we were in Vegas, I don't think I'd bet on the city. I would bet on we're not going to win. So that's number one. That's a fact. Secondly, you're being very fiscally sound for the city, for all the residents of the city. And that's very positive. Because as we know, and having been a high school principal, you want to be in a positive public relations with everyone, all the citizens. And then the other cities are going to look at us and say, wow, here's a perfect example of tremendous leadership, and they're still keeping their eye on the ball of the chain of pearls, the unity. Secondly, going to court, you're going to lose. That means you give up what? Any decision as to whether you're going to divide it this way or that way. You lose. So the best thing to do is to work with the facts, not with public opinion of naysayers. Or, for example, a couple weeks ago, a prominent member of this society, of this city, came up to me and says, well, I don't believe that there should be any change. It's taken me 2 weeks to understand what that meant. Well, here's my answer. Even though I'm not a psychologist, but I have been a counselor, but I don't give any true answers, because counselors don't give answers. They just have suggestions. I don't have an opinion for his opinion, because that's basically what it is. If you go by the opinions today, they may change tomorrow, because basically I don't feel that there should be any change. Well, that's an opinion. And an opinion can change, just like I like ice cream vanilla today, or maybe tomorrow I may dislike it. So opinions come and go. Look at the facts. So in my opinion, I believe that having reviewed the good work of our consultant for the city, Dr. Johnson, and I'm sure our legal counsel have reviewed it very carefully, that I believe that the best plan that I can see that's going to serve the needs of everyone without any Charlie checkpoints or any walls, it would be Plan 41B, which seems concise and pretty good. I would have changed it a little bit, but you know, that's my opinion, right? And one last thing is, I like to, you know, God bless America and God bless the city for everything they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate that. Anybody else in the audience? Yes, sir. Come and address. You have 5 minutes for your presentation. Please identify yourself at the podium. Is it 2B?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Dr. Roberto Casas. I live at 15905 Begonia Avenue in the preserve area of Chino. I'm also a commissioner on the Community Service Commission, and I see one of the reasons why I'm a member is because of the wonderful city we have for raising families and activities for our citizens and recreational activities. And I think the areas as they've been drafted in the six as they are, I agree with the other speakers that have come before me that I personally, and I live in the preserve area, I personally like draft 401B as well as 6-1. My two areas I think that would service our communities best. You know, we're gonna explode in growth by 2020 out in the preserve area, so that's something you need to consider. That's why I think the 6-1 is a really good plan for that, and so I would like you to consider the 401B and 6-1 as you move along. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We got all kinds of doctors here tonight. Anybody else wishing to address the council on this item? Come on up, sir. Identify yourself at the. You almost got shut down there. You got to move a little faster.
My name is Jeff Hawley. I live in District 2, and I do like the Plan 41B better because of the two changes that were made. I don't live in either of those, but I do agree with both of those. I still hate the fact that this is happening, but I know it's happening. You know,
You're not alone.
it's part of a bigger plan. We don't have a chance, but no, I just wanted to state that I do like 41B better than 4, or 41, which was my choice. I do not like the idea of 6 at all. 4's plenty. It's 4 more than we should have, but I can hang with 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a good one. Anybody else? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Our next task would be to, this council members, is to hopefully pick one of these. I think if we narrow it down, if we get down to 2 or something, or 1, that's fine. I think I'd like to take just a little survey from the council just to start it off. And we'll start with Mr. Howie. Howie, which plan are you leaning towards?
Let me just make a quick comment. Obviously, I think we're not crazy about. I'm definitely not crazy about the districting situation. I mean, who would have thought that 2016 would actually turn out that we would have to get into this kind of situation? And I think it's unfortunate. I think the good thing about our particular council is we've always been very concerned, and we have the welfare of the city of Chino at heart. And regardless of how these districts will go, I'm sure that this council will, if we're all together, will continue to think about Chino first. Obviously, in the future, I think districting will play a real interesting part in the city. And who knows where it's gonna go and what it's gonna do. And I think, and I looked hard at the 6 districts, because I believe eventually it's gonna happen. We're gonna need to, when the preserve bill's out, it's gonna be a huge area, and it's gonna need its own district. But I think at this point, 4 districts is plenty for us. But I did look at the six districts carefully. But at this point, I think the 4 is the way to go. Either 4-1 or 4-1B. In my case, 4-1 would include Via Park, and 4-1B would take Via Park out of my particular district. So, I'll leave it up to the council from
Well,
that
I need,
standpoint.
which one are you leaning toward?
Well,
I don't want 2 of them, I want one of them.
I would be fine with 4-1B.
Okay, very good. Eunice?
I would agree with much of what Tom has said. He and I had an opportunity to discuss this a little bit last night. And I too think the current council will always be looking at the entire city and the benefits to the entire city. But I think it's inevitable in several cycles from now, 3 or 4 cycles from now, people are going to want to appeal to their constituents to either be elected or be reelected. And I think human nature will become a part of our history, so to speak, in the future. People are going to fight for recognition within their own area. And I think the vision for the entire city will change a bit. It's human nature to want to appeal to the people who are supporting you. So instead of appealing to everybody, I think the districts will start concentrating on just their own area, which I think is going to be a shame. But it is inevitable, it is our future, and it is our responsibility to do the best that we can. I'm leaning also toward 4-1B. I think it's the best of the alternatives that we've been presented, but I am curious about the results of looking at what Mr. George had recommended, because to me, Mountain Avenue would be a logical boundary. It does traverse all the way to the north and almost all the way to the south. So I would appreciate seeing another alternative changing that one boundary, but otherwise I do agree with 4-1B.
Thank you. Councilman Duncan?
Yeah, I would echo what Mayor Pro Tem Ulloa and Councilman Howie said. If we need examples of this, all we got to do is look at Congress, look at the state legislature. We send people to Sacramento, and their main concern is what can they bring back to their districts to make them look good to the voters in their district. The unique thing about local government has always been that we're out there for all the people. When somebody stops me at Sam's Club to ask me a question, I don't care where they live. I don't care if they live in East Chino or West Chino or North Chino or South Chino. It doesn't matter. They live in Chino. My fear is that we're going to go from a city united to a city divided down the road. I don't think it'll happen right away, and like Eunice said, I think we'll go through probably 2 or 3 cycles before this really kicks in. But it's unfortunate that a firm that can get together and write legislation that benefits them and drains money out of the public's pockets for their betterment. I think that's really, really sad, and it is not the best thing for our city, or like Rancho Cucamonga wrote in the paper on Sunday, it's not good for any city in Southern California. So one of the cities in Southern California, Palmdale, has been fighting this for quite a while, and the lead attorney that is suing them is the mayor of Lancaster right next door. Lancaster elects by at large, and the mayor of Lancaster is suing the city of Palmdale for not electing by district. So that's the hypocrisy of this
$5
thing.
million.
Yeah, it's cost them $5 million. So if at some point this does go up into the courts, into the Supreme Court, we think that there's a good chance it could be overthrown, and we will have the option to reverse what we've done in the future. So, but I would lean towards 4-1B.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Dennis, I do want to apologize. It wasn't Gary George that brought up the Mountain Avenue. It was Mark Hargrove. Sorry,
Yeah, it was Mark. Yeah.
Gary froze the other part of the East Chino specific plan out.
Councilman Elrod.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I really hate to vote for districts. I mean, I think it's not gonna be the future of Chino. I think it's a bad deal altogether. But we have to do it financially. I mean, when it's, 5-0, these attorneys are winning.
Oh, yeah.
And the fees are astronomical. And we've worked hard to have a budget that has some funds in reserve, and we've got to protect that for the citizens of the Chino. I believe, like the rest of the council members, that Plan 4-1B would be the best bet. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Today at Sandbag, I was talking to Larry McCallum, the mayor of Highland. They just went through this exercise. They held an election. The people turned down the district king. The lawyers from Irvine took him to court. The judge threw out the election and ruled in favor of the districting and ordered them. They all have to run. Even Mayor McCallum has 2 years left on his term, but the judge ordered that all the council members had to run for re-election. And I asked him, had you received the bill from the attorneys yet? And he says, no, not yet. They have spent of their own money with holding the election and all that, $500,000. They're still awaiting the bill from the attorneys. And I asked him, what do you think that's going to be? And he says, between $800,000 and $900,000. That's what Larry said. I was like, jeez. So that's an example of what happens. Now, my opinion, I'm not really afraid of this districting because of my fellow council members, but I can't say that down the road. I don't think there'll be any attitude change as how the city is run with the sitting council members. It's maybe down the road, like Duncan said, we may see some change, but presently it really doesn't make a difference. I don't think with this council if we go to districting. But I've seen in my years as an elected official how some of these cities that are chartered and they're districted, Pomona, San Bernardino, Los Angeles, where there's real problems. And unless you have because the mayor will be at large, you have to have a pretty strong mayor to keep all these guys going in one direction. And I see the Mayor Carey from San Bernardino has a real tough time with that city. You know, they're going through bankruptcy on top of everything else. But I'm not worried about this council. Of course, I'm leaving in December, but it's important that the mayor be strong, and it's important that the council stick together. So districting doesn't really matter based on personalities that you folks elect to represent you. So I too will go towards the 4-1B. Now with that, we've got a majority 5-0 on the 4-1B. Now there is a suggestion, Mr. Johnson, tell me if I'm wrong, that we still can change this boundaries. And if it would be the council's pleasure, would moving that to Mountain Avenue have a huge impact on this 4-1B?
Mr. Mayor, actually, I was looking at the numbers a little bit after Mr. Hargrove spoke, and the numbers can drive us nuts, or sometimes they just kind of fall into place. And it turns out that the population between Central and, Cypress Mountain is relatively similar to the population below Schaefer. So instead of taking 2 below Schaefer, you could instead move it from Cypress to Mountain, and the Latino demographics come out essentially identical. The population balances. It rarely falls into place that quickly and easily, but that trade-off does work very nicely.
Well,
That cuts off Schaefer, though.
it cuts off Schaefer?
Well, it would, right, you'd bring District 2 back up to Schaefer.
Cut Gary out.
I mean, well, that was what he was.
Gary said he didn't care.
Yeah, I was kind of putting Mr. George's comments together, Mr. Hargrove's comments.
Yeah, okay.
And
So it's
it
okay
works
with
out.
Mr. George.
Gary did Ontario, right?
Yeah. Well, since it's the council's consensus, I would entertain a motion to choose 4-1B with the change to Cypress to Mountain. I would entertain a motion to
Go ahead.
to do that.
Clarify, it's also moving
Schaefer.
it up to
Right, exactly. We've got a motion by Councilman Duncan. I need a second.
I think you got one from Earl.
Yeah, second.
Doesn't show here.
Oh, we're,
Huh?
it's because I'm not even on where I'm supposed to be.
Earl's not here.
What's in the-
Earl stepped out for a minute.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Duncan, seconded by Councilman Elrod. Please vote. And it is approved, 4-1B with that change, 5-0. All right?
Okay.
With that, we will adjourn to our next meeting of the City Council. There will be a budget workshop on Thursday, May 12th at 4 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. The next regular meeting of the council will be held on May 17th, 7 p.m., 6 p.m. if necessary in these council chambers. We stand adjourned. Drive safely.